She said it so casually that for a moment I thought I had misheard her. You do not mind moving your date, right, Lizzie? Yours is just a small wedding. Mine is going to be a real event. That was the exact sentence my younger sister Serena said to me 3 weeks before my wedding, after she stole my date, my venue, and whatever illusion I had left that my family saw me as anything but a placeholder in their story. My name is Elise Harrington. I am 34 years old. I teach modern literature at a small university in Seattle, and I live a quietly ordinary life. I drink my coffee black, buy my clothes on sale, and have exactly zero interest in going viral for dancing in a kitchen. That has always been Serena's world, not mine. Serena is 27. She is a lifestyle and beauty influencer, which seems to mean she films herself opening packages other people sent for free and calls it work. My parents adore her. They share her posts in the family group chat, brag about her follower count to strangers, and describe her as ambitious and driven. I am the older daughter, the steady one, the one who got the degrees, pays her bills on time, and remembers birthdays without an app reminding her. Responsible. Practical. Not their words. Mine. Last year, something in my life finally felt like it belonged only to me. I met Lucas at a faculty lecture series. He was there to present a design concept from his architecture firm, talking about public libraries and how buildings could make people feel safe. He had ink stains on his fingers from a fountain pen and a nervous habit of pushing his glasses up when he was excited about an idea. After his talk, I walked up to thank him. Somehow our conversation about bricks and light turned into coffee, and then into dinners, and then into the kind of quiet, comfortable love I never believed I would get. When we decided to get married, I did not want a fairy tale ballroom or a viral first dance. I chose Harborlight Loft Gallery, a renovated warehouse turned art space on the waterfront. It was where Lucas and I had stumbled into a photography exhibit on our second date and ended up slow dancing in an empty room because the curator left jazz playing after closing. The gallery was small. Exposed brick, tall windows, string lights, and white walls that always smelled faintly of oil paint and lemon cleaner. We booked it a year in advance for May 20th. 3 p.m. An intimate ceremony with our closest friends, some of my students, a handful of colleagues, and the few relatives who had never made me feel like a disappointment. I had my dress. A friend in the costume department at the university stitched it by hand. The caterer was a local bakery that made almond cake, so good it made grown men tear up. Lucas's best friend agreed to officiate. We had finished the seating chart. The invitations had been mailed. It was going to be our day. Then my mother called and insisted we come over for family dinner. She sounded too cheerful. That should have been my first warning. It will be cozy, she said. Just us 4 and Serena and Callum. We have news. Callum was Serena's boyfriend. They had been together for 6 months. He handled marketing for some tech startup, drove a glossy electric car, and had the permanent confidence of a man who had never been told no. I walked into my parents' house that Sunday evening and knew immediately that the dinner was not about me. There was champagne already open on the sideboard. My mother had brought out the good plates, the ones she only used for holidays and Serena's milestones. A banner that said congratulations in glittery letters hung crookedly over the dining room doorway. Serena was glowing. Her hair was styled in loose waves, her nails were perfect, and her phone sat face down on the table like a promise she would pick it up the second the moment was about her again. My parents hovered around her, refilling her glass, laughing too loudly at nothing. Elise, my father said, standing to give me a quick, distracted hug. There she is. Lucas squeezed my hand under the table as we sat. He noticed it too. Even he did not get the full greeting. My mother pressed a kiss to his cheek and then fluttered back to Serena. My mother clinked her glass. All right, she said, smiling so wide I could see the strain in her cheeks. Serena has something to tell us. Serena stood, squealed, and held out her left hand. A diamond the size of a small planet glinted on her finger. We are engaged, she said, voice high and bright. Callum proposed at the rooftop bar last night. There were fireworks. She looked at me pointedly. People filmed it. It is already all over my stories. Everyone made the appropriate noises. My mother cried. My father raised his glass. Lucas smiled and told them congratulations. I did too. I meant it mostly. Egotistical and exhausting as Serena could be, I did not wish her unhappy. Then she kept talking. And we already have a date, she said, dropping back into her chair, practically vibrating. We are not waiting around. Life is short, right, Callum? Callum flashed his veneer-perfect smile and nodded. Strike while people are interested. My father laughed like that was the most charming thing he had ever heard. That is fast, I said carefully. Serena beamed. We are getting married on May 20th. It is perfect, right? Almost summer. Good light. The photos will be incredible. For a second, my brain refused to connect the words. May 20th. The date sounded wrong in her mouth, like she had picked up something of mine and dyed it neon. I blinked. What do you mean May 20th? I asked. Our wedding is on May 20th. She tilted her head at me and giggled. Yes, but you can move yours, Lizzie. You did not copyright the date. My mother's laugh was forced and brittle. Serena, she said, but there was no real reprimand in her voice. More like she was amused that we were all pretending this was a misunderstanding. I am not joking, I said, my throat tightening. We sent out invitations months ago. We have the venue booked. About that, Serena said, eyes sparkling. You are going to die when you hear this. Callum's company works with the Astoria Grand Hotel, and his boss's brother is on the board, so they pulled some strings for us. We have the main ballroom. It is the only date they could give us this year. Can you believe it? She paused, waiting for applause. My father whistled. Astoria Grand, he said. Now that is a wedding. It is going to be huge, my mother added. Press, influencers, brand partners, the works. A real celebration. Such an opportunity for you, Serena. I felt like I was watching myself from somewhere near the ceiling. My own voice sounded distant when I said, we already have our venue. Harborlight Loft Gallery. We booked it last year. Serena took a sip of champagne and shrugged. Then move it, she said. You are having, 40 people? A cute little ceremony? You can change it. Ours cannot. There is too much money and promotion tied to the date. I looked at my parents. Surely, I thought, at least one of them would say something. This was a joke that had gone too far. This was a line. My father cleared his throat. Elise, he said slowly, like he was explaining something reasonable. You have to look at the bigger picture. Serena's wedding is not just a family event. It is a platform. Media, partnerships. It reflects on all of us. Your wedding is more, personal. It can be moved a week or two. People will understand. Exactly, my mother chimed in. Do not be difficult. The last thing we need is drama over scheduling. Think about what is best for the family. I stared at them. What is best for the family? I repeated. You want me to move my wedding so my sister can have my date? It is not your date, Serena said lightly. It is just a date. You are being weird about this. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Lucas's hand found my knee under the table, steady and grounding. No, I said. I am not rescheduling. The room went very quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall. Serena's smile slipped. Just for a second, her eyes flashed cold. Then she laughed again, a practiced camera-ready sound. You are serious? Yes, I said. We planned this for a year. We booked the venue. People bought plane tickets. I am not giving that up because you decided you want the same day. My father set his glass down harder than necessary. Do not make this about competition, he said. You know how much this means to your sister. You, of all people, should be supportive. There it was. You, of all people. The older sister. The one who always made room. The one who bent. I stood up. I am happy you are engaged, I said quietly. Truly. But I am not moving my wedding. Elise, my mother started, but I was already walking out of the dining room. I heard my name called once, twice, then my sister's exasperated sigh as she muttered something about me always making things complicated. Lucas followed me to the front porch. The air outside was cool, smelling faintly of rain and the neighbor's jasmine. I swallowed against the lump in my throat. You heard all that? I asked. He nodded. I am on your side, he said. No speech. No lecture. Just that. I leaned into him, pressing my forehead to his shoulder, and told myself that was enough. I wanted to believe everything would settle. I wanted to imagine that my parents would sleep on it and remember they had 2 daughters, not just one. The universe answered me the next morning. I was grading papers at the tiny table in our kitchen when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my chest nudged me to pick up. Hello. Hi, is this Elise Harrington? A bright voice asked. This is Kira from Harborlight Loft Gallery. Relief flooded me. I smiled. Oh, hi. Is everything okay? A pause. I am so sorry to have to make this call, she said. But there has been a last-minute change. The gallery will no longer be available for your wedding on May 20th. My pen rolled out of my hand. What? I said. We signed contracts. We paid the deposit. Everything was confirmed. I know, she said, sounding genuinely uneasy. The situation is unusual. Another booking came through under the name Serena Harrington. She confirmed an all-day event wedding package for that date with a higher rate and a sponsor partnership. Management approved the change. We were told to offer you a full refund and an alternate date free of charge. For a moment, all I could hear was the faint crackle of the line. She took the venue, I said slowly. My sister took the venue. Kira hesitated. I did not realize there was a relation, she said. I just saw the last names and thought maybe it was a coincidence. It was not a coincidence. It was a map of exactly where I stood in my family. Replaceable. Negotiable. A line item to be rearranged. My fingers were numb. Thank you for letting me know, I managed. I will talk to my fiancé and get back to you about the new date. I hung up and sat there, staring at the smudged ink on my students' essays as if the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. She had taken my date. Then she had gone one step further and taken the place where my memory was supposed to live. Lucas walked in, keys in hand, ready to leave for a meeting. He stopped when he saw my face. Elise, he said, his voice dropping. What happened? I swallowed. She took Harborlight, I whispered. Serena took the gallery. His jaw tightened. He put the keys on the counter and came to my side. How? I told him. The phone call. The sponsorship. The higher rate. The casual way my life had been bumped off the calendar for something shinier. When I finished, he did not try to talk me out of how I felt. He just said very quietly, okay, then we are done asking for their permission. I looked up at him. What does that mean? It means, he said, That for once in your life, you make this about what you want. Not about your parents. Not about what Serena is doing. About you. If you still want to get married on May 20th, I will marry you in our living room if I have to. I am not marrying your family. I am marrying you. Tears blurred my vision. We planned everything around that place, I said. It was ours. He nodded. It hurts, he said. You are allowed to say that. So I did. I cried ugly and loud, right there at our wobbly kitchen table. It was not just about a building. It was about every time I had stepped aside so someone else could shine. Every time my parents had told me to be understanding. Every time I had been the stable one while my sister soaked up applause. By the time the tears stopped, my coffee was cold and my grief had turned into something sharper. Anger. Not the messy, explosive anger that makes you throw things. A cold, steady anger that clarifies everything. I called my parents that afternoon. My mother picked up on the second ring. Elise, she said, sounding wary. We were just talking about you. Serena said you left in quite a mood last night. She took my venue, I said. Did you know? A pause. I could picture her in the kitchen, hand to her chest, eyes darting around as if someone might overhear. She mentioned there was a mix-up, my mother said. But the gallery asked Serena if she wanted the full package on that date, and she said yes. That is their decision, not ours. Their decision, I repeated. That only came up because Serena called them and offered more money. My father's voice came in from the background. Elise, he said, clearly having grabbed the other phone. Let us be practical. Harbor Light is a business. They made a financial choice. This is not personal. It is personal to me, I said. We met there. We chose it together. We booked it first. Serena knew that. And you will find somewhere else, he said. You are good at adapting. You always have been. Do not ruin this for your sister with all this drama. She has sponsors involved now. There is a lot riding on this. There it was again. Ruin this for your sister. As if my existence was an unkindness. Let me be very clear, I said, my voice going flat. I am not moving my wedding for Serena. She took my date. She took my venue. I will not celebrate that with you. If you decide to attend her wedding on the day that was supposed to be mine, you are choosing her at my expense. Again, my mother gasped softly. Do not make us choose, she whispered. You are our daughters. We love you both. Then act like it, I said. Because right now, the only thing I see is you protecting Serena's image while you erase me. I hung up before they could answer. Lucas was leaning against the doorway, listening. He did not look surprised. Just sad for me. What now? He asked. Now, I said, we plan a wedding that has nothing to do with them. We sat down at that same little table and made a new list. Not venues that would impress anyone. Just places that felt like us. A friend mentioned a converted greenhouse an hour outside the city, hidden behind an old farmhouse. It was usually rented for retreats and art workshops, not weddings, but the owner liked the idea of something small and simple. When we went to see it, Lucas and I stepped into a space filled with hanging plants and dappled light and knew this was it. It smelled like soil and citrus. The glass panels were slightly clouded in places, the way old windows fog with age. There were wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and a tiny loft where the caretaker kept her books. We can do May 20th, the owner said. It is free. Most people want weekends, not weekdays. I laughed. May 20th is a Saturday this year, I said. She smiled. Then it looks like it is meant for you. On the drive back, Lucas reached over and laced his fingers with mine. Do you want to invite your parents? He asked gently. The question sat heavy between us. I do not want to, I said. But I feel like I am supposed to. You do not owe anyone an invitation to your own wedding, he said. Least of all people who are actively hurting you. That night, my mother texted me a long paragraph about understanding and forgiveness. She said families go through bumps. She said Serena did not mean any harm. She was just caught up in the moment. She said if I loved them, I would let this go. I stared at the message for a long time and realized something. The only version of love my parents ever understood from me was obedience. Love, to them, meant swallowing my hurt so others could stay comfortable. For the first time in my life, I did not respond. Days turned into weeks. Serena posted her wedding countdown on social media. There were videos of her trying on gowns at the Astoria Grand, hair and makeup trials, brand partnerships for shoes and fragrances. She called it the Harrington Grand Affair. My parents appeared in a few clips, smiling and waving, proud to be background players in her broadcast. I muted her accounts. The silence was a relief. In our little apartment, our wedding grew quietly around us like something planted and tended instead of broadcast. My friend from the theater department designed simple invitations on textured paper. We mailed them to our small list. 30 guests. People who knew us. People who had stood beside us when things were messy, not just when there were cameras. Lucas's mother cried when she opened hers. She called me and said, "Thank you for letting me be there." Like I was giving her a gift instead of including the obvious choice of family who actually acted like it. A week before the wedding, my parents finally called again. I almost did not pick up. Almost. "Elise," my father said, sounding harried. "We need to talk about this freezing out you have been doing." "Freezing out," I repeated. Interesting phrase. "We are your parents," he said. "We should not be finding out about your wedding changes from your aunt." She called your mother today, very upset that she was invited to something we had not even heard about. I exhaled slowly. I told you we were getting married on May 20th, I said. You made it very clear which wedding took priority for you. I assumed you would be busy that day. That is not fair, my mother said, her voice rising. We cannot be in two places at once. No, I said, you cannot. That is the point. There was a shaky inhale on the other end of the line. This is not you, my mother said. You are not cold like this. Serena said you were being dramatic to punish us. That made me laugh, a short, humorless sound. She would say that, I said, because she cannot imagine a world where someone finally says no to her and does not regret it. Elise, my father said, we want to be there, to walk you down the aisle, to support you. You are putting us in an impossible position. Then choose the possible one, I said. The smaller, quieter one where no one is live streaming their vows. They did not like that answer. We went around in circles for a while, my parents insisting they loved us both equally, that I was misunderstanding everything, that Serena was just impulsive, not cruel. In the end, my father said, we will see what we can do. In that tone that meant they would do whatever Serena wanted and hope I forgave them eventually. I did not hold my breath. The morning of May 20th dawned soft and gray, the way Seattle does when the sky cannot decide between mist and sunshine. I woke up before my alarm and lay there listening to the city outside our window. Somewhere across town, Serena was probably already in hair and makeup, her day documented from every angle. I made coffee. I sat at the table where I had cried weeks earlier and felt something strange. Come. Lucas knocked softly on the bedroom door he had slept in at his best friend's place. Ready? He asked, smiling when I opened it, my hair braided loosely over one shoulder. I think so, I said. We drove to the greenhouse with the windows cracked. The air smelled like wet pavement and budding leaves. When we pulled up the gravel driveway, there were already a few cars parked. Friends stood near the entrance, laughing softly, holding paper cups of coffee. Inside, the greenhouse felt like stepping into a different world. The owner had draped twinkling lights along the beams. Someone had scattered white petals along the narrow aisle between the rows of plants. The makeshift altar was a simple wooden arch wrapped in eucalyptus. I stood in the little loft with my dress spread out around me and looked down at the scene below. People I loved drifting in, hugging each other, signing the guest book with inside jokes. Lucas's mother smoothing his collar. His best friend checking his notes for the ceremony. My parents were not there. There was a tiny ache at that thought. An older version of me, the girl who had spent years doing everything right to earn their approval, whispered that this meant I was unloved, unchosen. The woman in the mirror, in a simple dress made by a friend, with ink stains on her fingers and laugh lines at the corners of her mouth, knew better. I was loved, deeply, fiercely, by people who had shown up. When the music started, I took a breath, held my bouquet tighter, and walked down the stairs alone. No father on my arm. No polite speeches about giving me away. I was not being given. I was stepping into something of my own making. Lucas's eyes were wet when he saw me. He mouthed wow, and suddenly every ache felt worth it. The ceremony was short and earnest. We exchanged vows we had written on notebook paper at our kitchen table. We promised boring things. To do dishes even when we were tired. To show up for each other even when one of us was wrong. To choose, over and over, the quieter work of building a life instead of chasing the loud high of being admired by strangers. When the officiant pronounced us married, there were no doves released, no choreographed kiss for the camera. Just two people who had decided that the best way to spite a world that equated worth with spectacle was to live a life that did not. Later, during the reception, someone's phone buzzed on the table. A cousin glanced at it and then looked up at me, eyes wide. You need to see this, she said, hesitating. Unless you do not want to. My stomach dipped, but curiosity won. What is it? She handed me the phone. My sister's Instagram live replay. I watched, sound down at first, then up. Serena in the Astoria Grand Ballroom, looking perfect, standing under an arch of white roses. My parents in the front row, my father in a new suit, my mother in a dress she had hinted she might wear to my wedding once. A line of brand logos discreetly placed along the back wall. Branded champagne. Hashtags on the screen. Thousands of viewers. At first, everything looked flawless. Then I noticed the comments flying by. Why is the audio cutting out? Is the mic broken? This looks chaotic. Who is that yelling in the background? Serena's smile had gone tight. The live video wobbled as someone jostled the phone. A voice shouted something off camera. The music stopped abruptly. One of the sponsor's reps stepped into frame, arguing with a coordinator. There had been a miscommunication about timing. The brand wanted a product shot before the vows, not after. The hotel staff was trying to keep to the schedule. The officiant was getting annoyed. The camera tilted again, accidentally catching my parents' faces. My mother looked mortified. My father looked angry, speaking sharply to someone out of frame. It was not a disaster. Not really. Just messy. Human. Imperfect. But in Serena's world, imperfection was the only unforgivable sin. The video ended abruptly. The replay captured her last expression. a flash of something raw and panicked in her eyes before she smoothed it over again. I handed the phone back. To my surprise, I did not feel smug. I did not feel triumphant. I felt relieved. Relieved that I had not spent my day worrying about camera angles and sponsored deliverables. Relieved that my biggest mishap so far had been someone spilling a bit of sparkling cider on the floor. Lucas came up behind me, sliding an arm around my waist. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Everything is exactly as it should be." We danced on a concrete floor, under glass panels streaked with the remnants of the morning's rain. My dress snagged once on a chair leg. Someone started a conga line as a joke. The cake was a little lopsided because my friend had iced it at 2 a.m. after pulling an all-nighter for a show. It was in every way imperfect. And it was mine. My parents called 3 days later. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Elise," my mother said, her voice small. "We saw some pictures. Your aunt sent them. You looked beautiful." "Thank you," I said. My tone was polite. Distant. "We wanted to be there," she continued. "You know that." I thought of my father escorting Serena toward the ballroom, sunlight glinting off cameras. Of my mother standing beside her, smoothing invisible wrinkles. Of me walking myself down an aisle in a greenhouse an hour away while they smiled into someone else's lens. "No," I said quietly. "You wanted to be at the wedding that counted for other people." There was a sharp inhale on the other end. "Serena had a rough day," my mother said quickly, as if the thought of her golden child's discomfort was more urgent than anything I might have felt. There were some issues with the hotel, with the brand team. It was very stressful. She was in tears after. "You two should talk. You are sisters. You should not let this silly misunderstanding ruin your relationship." Silly misunderstanding. Serena taking my date. My venue. My parents. And my mother wanted to file it all under silly. "No," I said again. "We are adults. We made choices. Choices have consequences. I am not interested in pretending everything is fine because it is easier for you that way." "Elise," my father cut in, impatience bleeding through now. "You are being cruel. This is not like you." They kept saying that, as if the real me was the version of myself who swallowed hurt and smiled anyway. Maybe they were right. Maybe this was not like the girl I had been. But it was exactly like the woman I was becoming. "I am not being cruel," I said. "I am setting a boundary. You taught me that family means putting other people first no matter how much it costs you. I learned a different definition. Family are the people who do not ask you to disappear so they can shine." There were a few more rounds of guilt and blame. "We did our best. You are ungrateful. Think of your sister. This is not how we raised you." They were right about that too. It was not how they had raised me. It was better. Eventually my mother cried, said she needed time, and hung up. Time passed. Serena posted a heavily edited recap of her wedding online. She cut the messy parts. The brand mishap. The audio cutting out. My parents' panicked expressions. All that survived were the highlights. The dress. The flowers. The crowd clapping on cue. To her followers, it probably looked perfect. To me, it looked like what it was. A show. Life, real life, happened in the spaces where there were no cameras. In the year that followed, Lucas and I learned how to share a home in ways that had nothing to do with aesthetics. We argued about stupid things, like whose turn it was to take out the trash, or whether books should be stacked or shelved. We apologized. We laughed. We visited the greenhouse on our first anniversary with a picnic basket, and sat on the same spot where we had said our vows. The owner brought us lemonade and asked how married life was treating us. "Surprisingly ordinary," I said. She smiled. "That is the best kind," she replied. My relationship with my parents did not completely heal. It shifted. The constant background noise of their expectations quieted once I stopped tuning myself to their frequency. We spoke occasionally. Holidays. Birthdays. Sometimes the conversations ended in tension. Sometimes they ended in a tentative sort of peace. I did not attend Serena's baby shower 6 months later. I sent a small gift. She did not come to our anniversary party. She sent a text. We were not close. Maybe we never had been, once you stripped away the roles we had played. People sometimes asked if I regretted anything. Regretted having 2 weddings on the same day. Regretted not giving my parents the version of events that would have been easier for them to explain to their friends. Regretted stepping out of the shadow I had spent my whole life standing in. The answer was no. I did not regret losing the fantasy that my family would become what I needed if I just loved them hard enough. I did not regret choosing a greenhouse full of plants and 30 people who truly knew us over a ballroom full of strangers and lenses. I did not regret learning, finally, that my life did not have to compete with anyone else's to matter. Sometimes, late at night, I would scroll past one of Serena's posts and pause. Her world looked glossy. Filtered. Perfect. Mine looked like mismatched mugs, half-graded papers, grocery lists, and Lucas asleep on the couch with a book on his chest. Between the two, I knew exactly which life I would choose. Every single time. The funniest part, if you can call it that, is that for all her scrambling to have the bigger, louder wedding, Serena still occasionally texts me to complain about how exhausted she is. How nothing feels like enough. How every gain becomes the new baseline, and she is always chasing the next high. I do not rub it in. I do not say what I am thinking, which is that she built herself a world where attention is currency, and there is never enough. Instead, I send something simple. I tell her I hope she finds some quiet somewhere. I hope she finds a day that is only hers, even if no one is watching. I hope someday she stops needing to borrow mine. I didn't expect her to reply. She rarely responded to messages that didn't fit neatly into her narrative of triumph and sparkle. But 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Serena, I don't have time for quiet. Quiet people get ignored. I stared at the message for a long moment. It was painfully honest in a way she didn't realize. Quiet people get ignored. That was what she'd always feared, being ordinary, being unseen, being like me. If only she knew how peaceful it was. I set the phone down and returned to chopping vegetables for dinner. Lucas was humming in the living room, flipping through vinyl records. The windows were open, letting in a breeze that smelled faintly of basil and the neighbor's barbecue. Normal. Soft. Real. Things Serena had never known how to hold. I heard Lucas call from the other room. How's my wife doing? Wife. The word still made something warm unfurl in my chest. I wiped my hands on a towel and walked toward him. He held out his hand, and when I took it, he pulled me gently into a dance right there in the living room. No music yet, just the sound of the city outside and his quiet laugh. I like this, I said. Which part? He asked. The dancing or the vegetables? All of it. The life part. His smile softened. He kissed the top of my head. Good. Because this is how I want the rest of our years to look. No crowds. No spotlights. Just us. We didn't know then that Serena's world was already fracturing. That choices don't come without a price. That the glitter she clung to so desperately had cracks forming beneath. But life has a way of revealing what's real, and what never was. 1 year later. It was raining the day my sister's marriage fell apart. Seattle rain is patient. It doesn't crash violently. It creeps in, slow and steady, like a reminder that nothing stays bright forever. Not even the people who believe they're made of light. I was in my office at the university, grading final papers, when my phone buzzed. Aunt Margot called me. It's about your sister. I stared at the message. For a moment I considered ignoring it. The last year had taught me the value of protecting my peace. But Margot was one of the relatives who had always been kind to me, even when my parents weren't. So I called. She answered on the first ring. Elise, she said, voice breathless. I'm so sorry to bother you at work, dear, but it's Serena. Her marriage, well, Callum walked out. I leaned back in my chair. Walked out. Apparently, she whispered, like the walls might tattle. He was never faithful. Not once. And she found his emails. Sponsors are dropping her. Her management firm ended their contract. Anne, she inhaled, your parents are frantic. Of course they were. How does this involve me? I asked calmly. Well, your mother said you should reach out. That Serena needs her sister. I almost laughed. After everything they'd done? No, I said softly. She has the family she chose. And the one they chose. My aunt was quiet a long moment. Then she sighed. I thought you'd say that. And honestly, Elise, you're not wrong. I blinked. I'm not. You've been treated terribly, she said. Many of us saw it. We just didn't step in. I'm proud of you for protecting yourself. The warmth in my chest surprised me. Thank you, I said. Take care of yourself, dear. I will. And Elise? Yes. You deserve every good thing coming your way. I hung up and stared at the phone for a long moment. Not in triumph. Not with satisfaction. Just clarity. People collapse when the world they built has nothing solid beneath it. Serena had spent her life building a stage. I had spent mine building a foundation. The collapse. Over the next few weeks, the news came in pieces. Callum had run off with a woman he'd been collaborating with. Their over-the-top wedding had been financed partly with loans Serena couldn't repay. Sponsor contracts were revoked due to brand inconsistency. Her follower count plummeted when her perfect life cracked in public view. She moved back into my parents' house. My parents were drowning in embarrassment and denial. I watched it all from the quiet safety of my life, not gloating, not bitter, just distant. The rope between us had snapped long ago. I had simply stopped pretending it hadn't. My parents reached out several times after the collapse. My mother called first. Elise, she said, your sister is devastated. She said she regrets everything. She wants to talk to you. We want to talk to you. I hope you all heal, I said gently. But I'm not part of that process. Elise, please. You made a choice last year, I said. All of you did. I'm simply honoring it. My father called next. Elise, you're being unreasonable, he snapped. Family forgives. Family doesn't break their daughters to elevate another, I replied. He had no answer for that. After 3 attempts, they finally stopped calling. My life. Lucas and I moved to a townhouse near Green Lake, a quiet neighborhood where people walked dogs, rode bikes, and waved to neighbors without needing a camera to capture it. We painted the walls sunlight yellow. We planted basil and lavender on the balcony. We adopted a senior cat named Juniper who liked to sleep on Lucas's architectural plans. Our marriage wasn't loud. It wasn't shiny. It didn't trend. But it was warm. It was steady. It was kind. The kind of love people don't clap for online, but the kind of love that holds up the world inside four walls. When we found out I was pregnant, Lucas lifted me off the ground and spun me in a circle before crying into my neck like a boy, whispering, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." We decided early. No contact with my parents. No access for them to our child. No space for people who only love conditionally. People asked if that was harsh. Maybe. But protecting a child was worth more than protecting someone's pride. When my mother somehow heard about the pregnancy, likely from a cousin, she left a voicemail, her voice trembling. Elise, please. This is our grandchild. You cannot shut us out. I deleted the voicemail without listening to the rest. Lucas glanced at me. You okay? I nodded. I'm good. Really? Because I was. Because some doors, once closed, should stay closed. Because love doesn't always come from the people who made you. It comes from the people who choose you. Months later, I saw Serena by chance at a small cafe near campus. She looked thinner. Tired. No makeup. Hair in a messy bun. No camera. No entourage. Just a person. She saw me. Froze. Then walked closer. Elise, she said softly. Serena. She swallowed. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. The words hung there between us like something fragile. I believed she meant it, but meaning it didn't undo the damage. Thank you, I said. Calm. Polite. Firm. I hope you take care of yourself. Her eyes glistened. Does that mean we can? No, I said gently. It means I wish you healing. From afar. She nodded slowly, like absorbing the reality that apologies don't erase consequences. That some bridges don't get rebuilt. That love doesn't mean returning to the people who burned you. She walked away with her shoulders slumped. I watched her go, not with pride or cruelty, just with acceptance. Some people are chapters. Not main characters. Not lifelong companions. Just chapters that teach you what not to tolerate. 1 year after everything began, I stood in our kitchen stirring soup while Lucas assembled a crib in the next room, cursing softly under his breath. Everything okay in there? I called. This crib is testing my moral character, he shouted back. I smiled. Our home smelled like rosemary and bread. Juniper snored in her bed. The evening light filtered through the windows in soft ribbons. This was family. Not the one I was born into. The one I built. Later that night, Lucas lay beside me, hand on my stomach, whispering to our unborn child about all the adventures waiting for them. His voice was soft, hopeful, steady. You're going to have the life you deserve, he murmured. Because your mom fought for it. And for the first time, I believed it. Fully. Completely. Without mourning who I'd lost. I hadn't lost anything. I'd gained everything. A partner who chose me. A child who would grow up surrounded by real love. A future not built on performance, but on peace. And a life that didn't need an audience to be meaningful. Because in the end, the wedding I thought I'd lost had led me exactly where I was meant to be. Loved. Seen. Whole. Free. I didn't know how to describe the feeling that settled into my chest in the months after that. Something like peace, but sturdier. Peace always felt temporary to me, like something that could be snatched away the moment someone else needed something louder than my quiet. This was different. This was ownership. I began noticing soft things again. Morning light hitting the window just right. The hum of Lucas working late on a design, muttering to himself as he erased and redrew the same line 5 times. The comfort of warm socks right out of the dryer. The way Juniper curled up in my lap like she'd known me in another life. Small things most people ignored. Things Serena never paused long enough to see. She'd once told me quiet was boring. Turns out quiet is where the real things grow. One of my colleagues joked that marriage looked good on me. Maybe it wasn't marriage. Maybe it was the absence of the constant ache I'd carried around for 30+ years, always waiting for my parents to love me the way they loved Serena. To see me the way they saw her. Letting go of that hope didn't break me. It freed me. One morning in early spring, Lucas and I were sitting at the breakfast table. He was laughing at an article about a dog that had learned how to skateboard, and I was flipping through student essays when a soft knock sounded at the door. Are you expecting anyone? He asked. No. He opened the door. A courier stood there holding a small cream envelope. Delivery for Elise Harrington. I took it, confused. Inside was a handwritten letter, my mother's handwriting. I froze. Lucas looked at me. You don't have to read it. I know, I said quietly. But I will. My hands shook slightly as I opened it. Elise, I know you don't want to speak to us. I know you've made your decision. But Serena is not well. She's struggling emotionally, financially, and socially. Her collapse has been very hard on her father and me. We were hoping. No. We were asking. For you to reconsider letting us be part of your life again. We know you're expecting a child. We want to meet our grandchild. Families heal in time. You will understand once you have children of your own. Please call. Mom. I read it twice, then a third time. Lucas watched my face carefully. Are you okay? Yes, I said. Because I was. Truly. But the letter, it was familiar in the worst ways. It wasn't an apology. It was a request for comfort. For access. For my emotional labor. They were asking me to step back into the role they'd always comfortable placing me in. The forgiving one. The accommodating one. The daughter who makes everything easier. I folded the letter neatly and placed it back in the envelope. Lucas waited. What do you want to do? He asked gently. Nothing, I said. And for the first time in my life, doing nothing felt strong, not passive. Strong. I'm not calling them. I'm not reopening wounds just because they finally feel theirs. He nodded. Then we won't. So we didn't. I threw the letter away. Not in anger, in certainty. A month later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown, it's Serena. Please don't block me. I need to talk. I stared at it for a long moment. I thought of the girl she used to be. The sister who used to braid my hair when we were little. Before she learned that attention had a currency. Before she learned our parents loved her most for how brightly she shined. Before she learned that eclipsing me made her glow stronger. Lucas watched my face shift through a dozen emotions. You don't owe her anything, he reminded me softly. I knew that, but I didn't block her. Me, I hope you're okay. She replied instantly. Serena, I'm not. I'm falling apart. I lost everything, Lizzie. Everything. I miss you. I miss how you used to take care of me. There it was. The truth wrapped in desperation. She didn't miss me. She missed who I used to be for her. Who I refused to be anymore. Me. I'm genuinely sorry for what you're going through. But I can't go back to the dynamic we had. I'm focusing on my family now. Serena, so you're done with me forever? I hesitated. What she wanted was absolution. What she needed was accountability. Me, no. I'm not done. I'm just not available in the way you want. Healing doesn't require reattaching to the people who hurt you. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Serena, I don't know how to do any of this. Me, then learn. And do it without using me as your lifeline. She didn't reply after that. And that silence, for the first time, didn't ache. When our baby arrived, a tiny girl with Lucas's dimples and my stubborn eyebrows, the world softened around its edges. Lucas cried harder than the baby did. He held her like she was made of blown glass, whispering a string of promises to her, his voice shaking. You're safe, he whispered. You're wanted. You will never have to earn love in this house. She opened her eyes, dark, curious, and my heart cracked open in a way I didn't know it could. Later that night, when the nurse took her for testing, Lucas wrapped an arm around me and said, We're a family now. I closed my eyes. We always were, I said. Now we're just a louder one. We sent photos to friends. To Lucas's mom. To his siblings. To my aunt. Not to my parents. Not to Serena. A boundary is a promise you make to yourself. And I had no intention of breaking it. 2 weeks later, a lawyer's letter appeared in our mailbox. Lucas frowned. What is this? I opened it. A formal request from my parents' attorney. Petition for visitation rights to their grandchild. Lucas's jaw clenched. Absolutely not. I wasn't surprised. Narcissistic injury tends to bring out desperation disguised as entitlement. They weren't grieving the relationship. They were grieving control. I called the lawyer directly. There must be a misunderstanding, she said. Your parents believe they have a legal right to see the child since they were excluded without cause. I laughed. Genuinely laughed. No cause? They emotionally abandoned me my whole life. They sided with my sister in betraying me. They never once checked on me during pregnancy unless it benefited Serena. And I made it clear we're no contact. A pause. Do you intend to contest this? Yes, I said. With everything I have. Lucas stood beside me, hand on my back, grounding me. Understood, the lawyer said. Given the circumstances, they don't have a case. I'll inform them. I hung up and exhaled. They're not getting anywhere near our daughter, Lucas said, kissing my temple. I know. And for the first time, I didn't wonder if I was being dramatic. I knew I was protecting our child from history repeating itself. 3 months later, my mother sent one final email. No glitter. No guilt. No demands. Just a single paragraph. We understand your decision. We hurt you for too long. We didn't believe there would be consequences. We were wrong. If you ever change your mind, you know where to find us. Mom. I read it once. Then again. Then deleted it. Without sadness. Without anger. Just finality. Some endings don't need explanations. Some stories don't need to reopen. Some people can love you and still be wrong for your life. I turned to Lucas and said, Let's go for a walk. I want to take our daughter to see the lake. He smiled. Yeah. We packed a soft blanket, a bottle, and her tiny striped hat that always slid over her eyes. Outside, the sun was warm. The lake shimmered. Ducks waddled beside the path like they owned it. Lucas took my hand, our daughter sleeping against his chest, and for a moment everything was still. I'm proud of us, he said. Me too, I whispered. Because we hadn't built a perfect life. We'd built a real one. Messy. Quiet. Deep. Full of love that didn't need applause. A life Serena never understood. A family my parents never bothered to learn how to nurture. But it was ours. Fully. Completely. Without compromise. The strange thing about peace is that it doesn't arrive all at once. It settles slowly, like dust after a long storm. You don't even realize how exhausted you were until you're finally allowed to rest. That first year with our daughter was like learning a new language. One spoken in soft hours, early mornings, tiny socks, and the quiet surrender of ego. She was small but fierce, the kind of baby who refused to sleep unless she could hear my heartbeat. Lucas said she already had my stubbornness. I said she had his warmth. Sometimes, late at night, when the house was silent except for the hum of the fridge and our daughter's soft breathing, I would sit on the edge of the bed, holding her tiny hand and think. This is what I was saving myself for. Not reconciliation. Not approval. But this, a life untouched by the noise of people who never knew how to value me. Lucas would come behind me, wrap his arms around my waist, and rest his chin on my shoulder. We didn't need words then. Some moments didn't need narration. But peace does not go unnoticed. People talk in small towns and big cities alike, just quieter, depending on the neighborhood. The whispers began in the extended family first. Elise finally stood up for herself. I heard she shut her parents out completely. Good for her. Well, Serena brought it on herself. I always knew that girl needed humility. Someone always knew. Someone always saw. And yet, no one stepped in until after the damage. Funny how bravery is often applauded only when it's safe to do so. I learned quickly not to rely on the approval of relatives who let me drown quietly for years. Their opinions were like coupons, expired and irrelevant to my life. The only voice that mattered was the one in my home. The more distance I gained, the more I realized Serena's downfall had less to do with her divorce and more to do with the scaffolding crumbling around her. Attention was her oxygen. Without it, she wilted. First, the glamorous friends vanished. Then the sponsorships. Then the invites to events. Then the brand deals that once made her feel untouchable. I heard from my aunt, who still sent me gentle updates respectful of my boundaries, that Serena had taken a job at a boutique store downtown because she needed income. She hates it, my aunt whispered over the phone. People don't ask for her picture anymore. They don't recognize her. That struck me, but not in the way people expected. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved. Relieved she might finally meet herself outside the reflection of a phone screen. And maybe, if she allowed herself, learn something real. My aunt visited her once. She asked about you, she said. She wanted to know if you were happy. I was. Deeply. But I didn't let that answer travel back. Some things were not for her consumption anymore. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and found Lucas and our daughter lying on the floor surrounded by blocks. He was teaching her how to stack them gently, laughing each time she knocked them over. She giggled, a soft, unfiltered sound that filled the whole house. I leaned against the doorway and watched, feeling that familiar ache of gratitude. Not the fragile kind that can be stolen. The sturdy kind. What? Lucas asked when he saw me smiling. Nothing, I said. Just this. He stood, crossed the room, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. We did good, Elle. We are doing good, I corrected. That distinction mattered. We were not done growing. Not done healing. Not done loving. We were constant work and constant reward. It happened by accident. I was at the farmer's market buying honey when I heard my name. Elise. I turned. My mother and father stood there, older than I remembered. My father's hair had thinned. My mother's eyes had the slight puffiness of someone who hadn't slept well in months. I felt my breath hitch, but only for a moment. Old habits die hard. They both stepped forward hesitantly. You look well, my father said. I am, I replied. Thank you. My mother's eyes softened. We heard about the baby. She's wonderful, I said, not offering details. My mother swallowed. We regret a lot. It wasn't an apology. Not a full one. But it was something. Still, I didn't step closer. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. My mother's lips trembled. Could we someday talk? Maybe, I said. But not today. She nodded. My father looked down. We parted without theatrics, without a scene, without a promise. I walked away lighter, not heavier. Because closure wasn't a door swinging open. It was one closing gently, quietly, without slamming. As the seasons shifted, so did we. Our daughter learned to sit up. Lucas built her a tiny bookshelf shaped like a castle. We repainted the kitchen a warm olive green. Juniper passed peacefully in her sleep at 17 years old. We buried her under a lilac tree in the yard. We held each other through the grief, through the joy, through the small storms of daily life. And one evening, after the baby had fallen asleep, Lucas pulled me onto the couch and rested his forehead against mine. You changed everything, he whispered. Me? Yes. Because you walked away from what hurt you. Because you chose yourself. Because you fought for a life we could build together. I closed my eyes. I used to think choosing myself meant losing everyone. But choosing myself became the door to everything worth having. Love. Safety. Family. Future. I whispered back. We changed everything. 3 years after my daughter was born, I received a final letter. Not from my parents. From Serena. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. Elise. I'm not writing to ask for anything. Not forgiveness. Not connection. Not access to your life. I'm writing to say thank you. For being the first person who ever said no to me. For being the boundary that broke the version of myself I hated, but didn't know how to escape. Losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. I hope you're happy. Truly. Serena. I read it twice. Then placed it gently in a drawer. Not to save the relationship, but to honor the chapter. It was the last I ever heard from her. And that was okay. Some stories don't need a reunion. Some endings don't need a reunion. Some wounds heal best in separate lives. Years later, as our daughter grew older, bright, curious, stubborn, I realized something profound. I had given her something I never had growing up. A home where love wasn't a competition. A family where she didn't have to earn her place. A life where she wasn't compared to anyone. A mother who learned, too late but not too late, that some people must love you from a distance, or not at all. A father who showed her what healthy love looks like without ever raising his voice. And one night, after putting her to bed, Lucas wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You broke the cycle." I smiled against his chest. "No," I said softly. "We did." He kissed my temple and held me tighter. And in that quiet, I finally understood what my life had become. Not perfect, not flashy, not dramatic, but honest, and warm, and full, and mine. A life built not around being seen, but around being safe. A marriage built not on spectacle, but on substance. A family built not from the people I was born to, but from the people I chose, and who chose me right back. And that, after everything, was the happiest ending I could have ever written for myself. Time makes its own decisions about what matters. It keeps some memories sharp, others blurred, and some it lets settle like dust on the shelves of your mind. But the older I grew, both as a woman and as a mother, the more I understood that the things that stay with us are the ones that teach us who we really are. Years passed gently. Our daughter grew into this brilliant, unstoppable little force. She laughed like thunder and cried like she was announcing something important. She had Lucas's cheeks, my stubborn chin, and a confidence that came from knowing she was never an afterthought. When she was 4, we enrolled her in a preschool near the lake. She strutted into the classroom wearing a tiny backpack covered in stars, waving at everyone like she was greeting her loyal subjects. Lucas gripped my hand as she vanished inside. "She didn't even look back," he whispered dramatically. "She's independent," I laughed. "She's ruthless. She learned from the best." He bumped his shoulder against mine. "I like this life, Elle. I do too." 2 months into the school year, something unexpected happened. I was walking our daughter across the small parking lot when a woman stepped out of a dusty sedan and closed the door carefully behind her. At first, I didn't recognize her. But then she turned. Serena. Not Serena the influencer. Not Serena the manufactured perfection. Not Serena the prodigy of our parents' expectations. Just Serena. Her hair was shorter. Her face was softer. She wore a simple sweater, jeans, and a pair of scuffed flats. She looked like an actual person, not a brand. She froze. I froze. Our daughter tugged my hand. "Mama? Who's that?" Serena blinked rapidly. "Hi," she whispered. "Hello," I said calmly, neutrally. She glanced at my daughter, then back at me. Something flickered in her eyes. Something not like the old hunger for attention or validation. Something human. "She's beautiful," she said. I nodded once. "Thank you." There was an awkward pause before she spoke again. "I'm here for a volunteer position." They needed helpers in the art room. My breath caught slightly. "Serena. Volunteering." She must have seen my confusion because she said quickly, "I needed something quiet. Something real. Something that didn't ask me to be anything." I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. She took a breath. "I'm not asking for anything from you. Or from her. I just wanted to say I'm glad you're doing well." I softened, not out of forgiveness, but out of understanding. Some people grow. Some people pretend to grow. Some people perform growth. But this moment wasn't a performance. It was small, honest, vulnerable. "Thank you," I said quietly. She nodded and walked inside. I didn't stop her. I didn't follow her. I didn't feel the need to. Because healing doesn't require reopening the door. It just requires not locking it out of spite. Later that night, after brushing our daughter's hair and reading Goodnight Moon for the 50th time, I told Lucas what happened. He paused midway through folding laundry. "She looked different," he asked. "Human," I said. He nodded slowly. "Do you feel anything about it?" "I feel okay." He smiled, relieved. "You don't want to reconnect?" "No," I said. "But I don't want to hate her either." Lucas came over, kissed my forehead, and wrapped his arms around me. "You amaze me," he murmured. "Why?" "Because you learned how to heal without needing the people who hurt you to participate." I exhaled slowly. It took everything to learn that. "And now," he asked gently. "And now," I said, "I'm building something better." One Sunday afternoon, we hosted a small barbecue in our backyard. Our friends came with their kids. Lucas grilled. Our daughter ran around wearing fairy wings and chasing bubbles like they owed her money. At one point, she ran up to me holding a handful of dandelions. "For you, Mama," she shouted. I took them from her like she'd handed me a bouquet of roses. My friend Maya laughed. "She's obsessed with you." I smiled. "I'm obsessed with her too." Maya leaned against me. "You broke the generational curse, you know." I looked at her. I didn't think about it like that. "But you did," she said firmly. "You raised a child who knows she's wanted. You married a man who sees you. You built a home where you don't have to fight to be loved." My eyes stung. Sometimes, hearing it from someone else felt like proof. Proof I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Years later, after our second child was born, after promotions, after repairs on the roof that made us curse endlessly, my parents reached out one last time. Not with a request. Not with a demand. Not with guilt. But with a simple holiday card. On the inside, "We hope you and your family are well. We're sorry for the years we can't change. We're grateful you've built the life you deserved. Mom and Dad." No manipulation. No expectations. No rehearsed script. Just words late but honest. Lucas saw my expression and asked, "Do you want to respond?" I shook my head. "I think this is enough." He nodded, trusting me. And I realized something important. I didn't need my parents' love anymore. I didn't crave their approval. I didn't feel the hollow ache that used to sit in my chest like a stone. Because the love I needed, the love I had always deserved, was already in my home. I had built my own family. And that was the most beautiful ending I could ask for. One night, as Lucas tucked our daughter into bed, she looked up at him and asked, "Daddy, were you scared to marry Mama?" Lucas laughed. "Scared? Never. I chose your mom every day. I still do." Our daughter giggled. "I'm going to marry someone who loves me like that." Lucas kissed her forehead. "And you will, because you'll never accept anything less." I stood in the doorway, watching the two people who taught me more about love in a handful of years than my family ever had. When Lucas saw me, he walked over, pulled me into his arms, and whispered against my ear, This is what you deserved all along." And for the first time, I fully believed it. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the shadow behind Serena's spotlight. I wasn't the quiet one in the family narrative designed to erase me. I was a woman who learned to save herself. A mother who broke the cycle. A partner who loved and was loved without conditions. A person who built her own story when the one she was born into failed her. And every day I chose not bitterness, not revenge, not longing, but peace. Real, steady, life-defining peace. The kind that doesn't crumble when someone else shines. The kind that doesn't waver when someone tries to rewrite the past. The kind that grows roots deep enough to anchor an entire family. My family. The one I created. The one I chose. The one that chose me right back. And in the quiet glow of our home, full of laughter, tiny shoes, and Lucas humming off key, I finally understood something my younger self never could. You don't need to be loved by the people who broke you. You just need to love yourself enough to walk away from them. And when you do, you get the chance to build something better. Something honest. Something warm. Something whole. Something real. The life you always deserved.